Hello and welcome to the 94th episode of the Intrepid English podcast. My name's Lorraine and today I will be interviewing our newest teacher, the lovely Caitlyn. We have a very in-depth discussion about lots of different things, including studying world history and political science at Nelson Mandela University in South Africa. We talk about her experience of teaching, volunteering, and helping people from vulnerable communities. We talk about race, diversity, and inclusion. And we even talk about football. I have a feeling this could be the first of many podcasts with Caitlyn. She has so much to talk about, and she is a genuinely fascinating person. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Hi Caitlyn, how are you today?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. I'm still giggling, you can hear that, because when we speak, we have a tendency to get right into it immediately, don't we? And start talking about all kinds of crazy topics.
I love that.
Just for the listeners' benefit, we had, an hour and a half chat yesterday, when we just put the world to rights, and today we've been chatting for 20 minutes, and it's like, come on, we need to start recording the podcast now. Would you like to start by introducing yourself for everyone?
Yeah, sure. I am Caitlyn. I'm from South Africa. I'm in my final year studying at the Nelson Mandela University. I am majoring in political science and world history. My degree has also allowed me to study English language studies, which I'm really grateful for, because I'm quite intrigued by grammar and the linguistics part of it. Yeah, I've had a chance to meet so many lecturers and professors from all over the country, which I'm quite grateful for.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I stay about maybe 10 minutes from the beach, which is pretty cool. I really love staying close to the beach because it allows my friends and I to go on missions for sunrise and sunsets. My favorite is definitely the sunrises.
So for those of us who don't know the geography of South Africa very well, what's the name of your city and where is it based in relation to, say, Johannesburg or Cape Town?
Yeah, so my city was formerly known as Port Elizabeth. We are in the Eastern Cape. And our name changed in March, so it's now called Gqeberha.
Can you tell us a little bit about the name change and why that happened, and you know what's the reaction to the residents there because of the name change?
Yeah, so it was not an easy decision for most people. I think it came out of nowhere. It was not, it wasn't an easy change, but in my opinion, I think it was necessary. However, I don't think that it should have been done so soon. I think, before you change the name, maybe first look at, the infrastructure in the city before, changing the title of it. For example, just the roads needed fixing, access to water in poorer communities, stuff like that could have maybe been looked at first before changing the name. And the point of changing the name was because... So Port Elizabeth was the name of our previous colonizer's wife. So that's why they needed to change the name.
There's a huge movement and awakening happening in many places all over the world at the moment regarding addressing, recognizing, and changing perceptions of colonization in the past. Here in the UK recently, we've had quite a few statues torn down and small changes like that, nothing really super major. But it's happening because of the wider conversation that's going on about how little we're taught in school about some really dark history of ours. And some people might say, oh well, it's not necessary to teach it. It absolutely is, in my opinion, because it is connected to the present time now. So many of the citizens of Britain feel hostility from white residents of Britain They absolutely belong here. And one of the many reasons why they and their families moved here is because of colonization. So it is absolutely connected to the present time now.
Yeah, but like you said, that can be a whole different conversation and goes much deeper, especially in South Africa, because it's still quite relevant for us, and for many of the other places. So, and it's also a bit of a tricky situation depending on how you look at it. As a person of color, and somebody that studies politics, it's especially because of the whole race thing. You just have to train lightly on that, I think. Yeah, because I think it's still quite a sensitive topic for most people.
This is what I mean. Like, you and I, as soon as we start talking, we get right into the deep stuff. And I love that. In fact, I would say, I was thinking about this earlier, I would say that to me is one of the signs of a really good teacher, or the potential for a really, really good teacher. So when I interview new teachers, when I have the experience of the interview just flying by, I've really enjoyed our conversation, I learn a lot from them, I just think my students are going to love this. The Intrepid English students are going to love this teacher. And in my opinion, everything else is teachable. But if you are, switched on, if you've got a curious mind and you have the ability to explain objective facts, but also your opinion in a clear and respectful way, that will mean that our students will love the lessons, and therefore they'll keep coming back and they'll be motivated to make progress. So you're great. I think that was a really brief explanation of something which it could go extremely deep, of course.
Yeah.
And I'd love to talk to you about some of these things, but yeah, maybe in another podcast another day. Because if I find it really interesting, I can guarantee my students are going to find it interesting, right? Intrepid English is a small team, but we are quite diverse. We have members of various different communities, and we've got multiple members of the LGBTQ plus community. We have teachers of different ages. We've got native and non-native speakers. We have a disproportionately large amount of women. So that maybe could be balanced out a little bit more. But it's been a goal of mine for a while to have a more racially diverse team, mainly because that's what my life is like. That's what my circle is like. I like to surround myself with different voices, different perspectives, people from different communities, countries, cultures, languages. And it adds so much value to any situation, any room, any circle, any team.
Yeah, I don't, like I said from the beginning, I'm a very chilled person. I like having conversations about such topics because I think it's really important. Especially, it makes it easier when the other person has an understanding on the same level as you do. So it makes it easier for these type of conversations to take place.
Your perspective is so important to me for many, many reasons. And I'll go into some of them now, but I really think that you have so much to talk about, and I would really like to sit down and talk with you about it. Your perspective is really important to me because for a long time it's been a goal, and I told you this in the interview, for a long time it's been a goal of mine to have a person of colour on our team, because I want to hear that perspective. I want to hear a voice, at least one voice, which is from that community.
Yeah, from my perspective, I'm not a spokesperson for all people of color. Just because someone may look the same as me doesn't mean that we'll have the same perspective or the same values. So I think that's just something important that people need to take into account. But I can, offer a perspective that may be different from other people's, if that makes sense. I think that there are a lot of people of color that are willing to put in the hard work, but just don't have the opportunities to do so. So it's not to say that, we're all the same and it's our responsibility, but I generally do like having these type of conversations. when it's my choice, I do like it. It's different when it's when I'm forced to have it. Then it takes the fun out of it. But I don't have no problem with speaking about it, especially because I firmly do believe that it is important.
Mm. Yeah, that's the experience that I've had. I've worked with some amazing people of colour, teachers and otherwise. Diversity of all kinds is beautiful. It's wonderful, and it's valuable, and it's important. And unfortunately, it's something which needs to be actively worked towards. It's incredibly important for me that Intrepid English is a place where excellent teachers work. I know there's a world of amazing teachers out there. So the students who come to us don't want to have several trial lessons with loads of different teachers to find one that suits them. They want to know that they can come to a place where we've already done the work to make sure that all the teachers are excellent. That's the sort of baseline for us. But unfortunately, the hiring methods that we've used in the past, it's now apparent to me, were not as diverse as I wanted them to be. Because of the algorithms of social media and because of generally the way that we live, we tend to meet people and get to know people and hire people who are sort of similar to us in many ways. So I had to make an effort to diversify, to find non-native English teachers who were very, very highly qualified, lovely people, passionate about teaching. And because, unfortunately, what came easy to me were teachers who had a CELTA qualification and were native English speakers and were white. It was incredible to me how bland the selection was. So, really, it was a learning moment for me that, to go out there and find diversity in all its forms and guarantee that the teachers that were coming on board were excellent teachers. I'm really conscious, though, Caitlyn, that you don't have to teach. It's not your job to educate everyone on this particular matter, on the matter of race and sensitive issues like that. It's your job to teach people English. But all of us teachers bring a real mixed bag of experiences to the table, and that's what our students are really interested in. So on the one hand, you don't have to be a spokesperson for people of colour by any means, but on the other hand, I've learned a lot from you already, and I hope that continues.
That it's so important to use your platform in that kind of way, like you recognize your responsibility, and it goes much deeper. And I know we spoke about this yesterday, but that it goes much deeper than just teaching a language. You see the empowerment in that.
So many people I believe genuinely want to do better, but they're either too scared of making mistakes, or they recognize that there's just a huge gap in their knowledge, and it just seems a bit intimidating to them, which is one of the reasons why we've created this diversity and inclusion course in the Intrepid English Academy. Yeah, when you have the opportunity to meet someone where they are and gently guide them towards more awareness and generally ways to talk about sensitive issues, it's a huge relief for them, because life throws these situations at everybody. And if you're not prepared for it, then that increases your anxiety.
Wow.
A couple of years ago, having one of these conversations with a really lovely student of mine, they admitted to me that they were a little bit worried about talking about sensitive issues at work, or even just talking to people. For example, in their case, it was a transgender person. They were scared of talking to that person because they didn't want to say something wrong. They didn't want to slip up and offend them. And it came from a genuine place of not wanting to hurt someone else's feelings. And we talked about it for a while, and I realised, because of their culture, because of their country, and because of the experiences that they had or hadn't had, they really didn't have much vocabulary for this particular area, or even didn't really know if they could ask the person, what their pronouns were, for example. So it planted a seed in my mind that we should create a course that provides people with the language that they need, either to ask a question or to even know whether it's appropriate to ask that question or not. So a few of the teachers and I have been talking about it and slowly sort of built a course together. And you've been kind enough, Caitlyn, to have a look through it and read it. As you can imagine, it's been quite a big project.
I felt quite honored to be able to read through that. I think it's going to be so cool, and I'm so excited for students to read that. I really am. I think it's going to be quite the course. Yeah, I'm quite excited to see the outcome.
Oh, great. Thank you. It's something that's really close to my heart. And I think that it's necessary for people to understand that if you're genuinely coming from a kind place and you are respecting people and where they are and not making them feel attacked or disrespected, then we should have these conversations so that people can talk, can build their awareness, can make everyone feel like they belong in work, in a friend circle, in all areas of life. Yeah, we work with a few different charities, and I trained the volunteers at one charity recently about how to approach certain conversations sensitively in a way that respects people. And the general feedback from that training session was relief and gratitude. Because genuinely, most people do not want to hurt other people's feelings, but they recognise that one phrase, one slip up somewhere, which is completely innocent many times, obviously not all the time, can have a massive effect on someone's confidence, and they would hate to do that. So giving someone the tools to talk about something, or even knowing what is okay to talk about and what not, it's a relief for a lot of people, because they want to have conversations, they want to learn, they want to be better, essentially. One thing I always ask our new teachers is, how did they get into teaching English? I know you've had experience with teaching kids and volunteering. So why do you enjoy teaching English? What is it about teaching English that you really like?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. Okay, so the whole volunteer work started when I was in high school. It was just part of our cultural responsibilities that we had to take part in certain volunteer work, and I chose to do Maranatha Children's Home. Yeah, and we would just spend time with the kids, and my favorite time was we would have a Christmas party with them and wrap presents for them and put on Christmas hats, which was really cool. But my Christmas hat always got stolen. I was getting bullied, but that's like a whole different conversation. But they were so cool. Yeah, then I came to university, and I had a lot of free time on my hand during first year. So I wanted to go back to that specific children's home. So I did, and the lady there is so cool that's in charge of the social settings of it. And the one day I went there, I think it was a Friday, and I went with two of my other friends. The lady looked at us and then she said, okay, we can take them outside, but they have to finish their homework first. So I sat everyone down, and then we helped them with their homework. I started playing music in the background just to help with the motivation, bit of Drake in the background. And I really enjoyed helping them out with their homework, because it was just a small token of what I could do as my responsibility as a human being. And because I am attending university, I have a bit more experience in the education department, so I'm able to give back in that way. There's another place, it's called Treasure Homes. They take care of adults with a physical disability. So I've been there, I think I went also in my first year. They're located down the road from my campus, so it's quite convenient. So I just helped out there. Then there's an NGO called Love Story. I think that's the biggest one in our city. They do so much work for vulnerable communities. They aren't taking on people for volunteer work now because of the pandemic. I've made 67 sandwiches for 67 minutes for Mandela Day. So the 67 is related to Mandela's 67 minutes, and it's 67 which signifies each year he devoted his time to fighting for freedom and equality in South Africa, which encourages us to do something, to give back to other communities for 67 minutes. And because I couldn't offer my time because of the pandemic, I made 67 sandwiches.
I love that you're really into volunteering and helping people who are from vulnerable communities. I think that's really special, and it's something that I really relate to. And there was something you said in your Meet the Teachers blog post that really, really sort of stood out to me, and that was about the philosophy of Ubuntu. Would you like to explain what that is?
Yes, so Ubuntu is a word we use. It means I am because you are. It's an African philosophy. And I think from somebody who's not in South Africa or from our continent that wants to understand what it means, I do think that the best way to understand that is how Archbishop Desmond Tutu explains it. How he, in my opinion, is, the biggest advocate for Ubuntu. The way he explains it is so insightful. So I'll put it in my own words, but it basically means that my humanity is intertwined with yours. So in order for me to exist, I need you to exist, but I need you to be you to the fullest in order for me to exist. And, he goes further to explain that, it goes right to the beginning, that a person talks because, they've seen somebody else talk and then they've learned to speak. The same with walking. They would first see somebody else walk and then they would learn how to walk. It's that type of philosophy.
Lovely.
And for my personal perspective, I just think that I am honored privileged in a way to go to university, and therefore I have, I'm exposed to certain opportunities. I have a bit of knowledge, and I'm able to give back and participate in society. I see that as my responsibility because I know that not many other people are able to do that. Unfortunately, not all of us have that mindset, but as much as we want to shout about rights, I think, with every right comes responsibility. And I don't see the point in, going through life and just having your own goals, like you have to also look at your neighbor and see how else you can help them.
100%. Yeah. That moral, that value that you've just talked about there is at the centre of Intrepid English and all of the teachers that work for us. It's not just about teaching English grammar at all. It's about empowering people to fulfil their own potential, because that is what allows us to fulfill ours. And yeah, that's a value that all of the teachers share. But it was particularly amazing for me to read this lovely, unique way of putting it in one simple word. It's so succinct. It's so nice to hear that.
So that's why I genuinely do enjoy teaching English. And just also when a student tells me their goals, that's the best part. Being able to contribute to that. Oh man, that's amazing. So I think two of my students at the beginning, they told me their goals. So we just had many conversations about the interests and everything. And I noticed at the beginning of this week that they've become so much more confident, and they started sending me voice recordings by themselves about, just telling me about their day. But before, like at the beginning, there was no way that they would have thought about doing something like that. But now slowly they're becoming more confident in the language, which I'm so proud. Oh, I'm so proud of them. I'm very much into soccer. So we received some bad news about one of the most famous footballers in history. It's Lionel Messi. He's leaving Barcelona. And my students two of my students are huge soccer fans. So I was so excited to tell them about the news, and just to see their reactions. Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. So many interesting conversations that have sprouted off this conversation today. I would love to go into more detail with you in a later podcast. We've got questions about your studies, about dealing with world history. Oh my gosh, that could be a whole series in itself. And politics. Politics is something that, everyone's very concerned about, talking about this subject. But as you said yesterday to me, politics is basically at the core of everything that we do as people, as citizens of the world. I feel like you have so much to share and so much to teach us and me. So would you consider coming back and having a more in-depth conversation with me in a future podcast, Caitlyn?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I genuinely wouldn't mind that. I mean, I always enjoy our conversations, so that's pretty chilled. Yeah, no problem.
There is a question that I always ask our new English teachers, and that is, what advice would you give to your students, to English learners?
Yeah, I think that it's important to be patient with yourself. And this week I saw with one of my students, he was putting a lot of pressure on himself to reach his goals, like by the end of the month. And it was quite a reach. But, I just messaged him and I said, okay, like if we take it step by step, just don't focus on the whole thing at once, let's break it up in pieces. We'll take it step by step, and you are going to make mistakes because it is a journey, which means you're supposed to make mistakes. And that's why you're going to have really great teachers there to guide you. But it's just important to be patient with yourself, because that's the whole point of being part of a journey. Learning a language isn't easy, so you're supposed to get frustrated here and there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a great book about this that I would really recommend called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I'll add the link in the episode notes to anyone who's on the journey of learning anything, not just a language. But yeah, breaking it down into individual small milestones and appreciating them and celebrating them when you hit each one will allow you to enjoy the journey rather than just keep striving towards this end goal and therefore being frustrated at every point along the way because you haven't yet reached that goal. So
yeah, 100%.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Intrepid English podcast. I hope you enjoyed it as much as Caitlyn and I did recording it. This is our 94th episode. So keep your eyes peeled for the 100th episode, during which we'll give away a free prize. As always, if you have any questions, feedback or requests, feel free to use the chat box in the Intrepid English website. We always love to hear from our listeners. Thank you so much to Tree, who left us a wonderful review this week. We love to hear your feedback. If you enjoyed this episode or any of the other Intrepid English podcast episodes, please take a second to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps other English learners to find us, and it helps us know that you're enjoying our content. From everyone at Intrepid English, have a wonderful day.